Hey, a very good morning and welcome to TJN Live, broadcast from EVM Media, live morning show, and we're back in Bend, Oregon. Glad to be back with you. This last weekend, Friday, we were doing our first our first hour and a half show was from Ontario, Oregon. We talked to the good folks from Love Inc., also from Veteran Advocates of ORIDA. Great folks there, and we do plan on going back to Ontario. A lot of folks we want to talk to about on a number of different fronts in the Ontario area. One of the things from the veteran standpoint we want to visit is the Warhawk Museum, which is at the, I believe, the Nampa Airport right now. Used to be at the Caldwell Airport, but they moved it to Nampa. I'd like to visit with those folks and do an interview with them, and bring it here live on the morning show. Today we have Gavriel Smith. And Gavriel, it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show. Been looking forward to this particular broadcast. This is TJN Live, the part of the show where we talk about what God is doing in the community and report it. Let's take a few minutes here and explain what we're doing with the show. It's our goal to take the show on the road as much as possible. This coming weekend we will be in Myrtle Point, Oregon. Now the show is eventually, very soon, going to grow into 4 half-hour segments, so it'll be a 2-hour show. The first half hour of the show will be TJN Live, which is where we look at what God is doing in the communities that we visit in the world and across the state. Second half hour of the show is the Eagle Live, where we take a look at veterans issues, some of the challenges affecting veterans, what's happening in their lives, and more importantly, how you and I can help. Third half hour of the show is called Community Pulse, and that's put on by EVM Media, which is the parent company of TJN, the Jesus Network, and Operation Eagle's Wings. EVM Media's Community Pulse is where we go into a community and just talk about an issue in the community, be it school board, be it city council, maybe the streets need repaired, water, maybe there's a Boys and Girls Club event happening that weekend, or whatever's happening in the community. Fourth half hour of the show we're going to call Open Mic, EVM Media Open Mic, and what that is, it's a half hour, so we will have 6 businesses in that community invited to come on the show, and they will each have 5 minutes to talk about their business. So when we go into a community, we want to give everybody a chance to get online and share with the world what's going on in Myrtle Point, Ontario, Bothell, Washington, Salem, Oregon, Portland, Newport, wherever we happen to go. So we're very excited about the show, and also have some more announcements coming up very soon about how advertisers can get involved to help financially support the show to allow this to continue to happen. So, some announcements. First of all, we want to remind you that Courageous the Movie is coming up September 30th. Now, this is made by the same company that made the film Fireproof. What Fireproof did for marriages, Courageous is designed to do for families. Very strong message on why men should be the spiritual leader of the household. And what the movie also treats the topic of what happens when that doesn't happen, what happens when it does. Great movie. We've had people that watched the movie with us during the preview in Bend, Oregon. That some people said they even liked it better than Fireproof. So have you seen Fireproof, Gabriel?
I sure have.
What did you think of that movie?
It was absolutely wonderful.
It was. And you haven't had a chance to see Courageous yet?
No, I have not.
Oh, do you plan on seeing it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's coming up September 30th. One of the reasons why we're pushing it so hard is Hollywood looks at the opening box office numbers of how successful they believe a movie will be. And that has a great say in how many of those kind of movies that they make. So, for example, if Courageous has a huge box office on opening weekend, then that's going to send a message to Hollywood that the public wants to have more family value films, more Christian type films, and so that's why we're pushing the movie so hard. We are going to have a meeting here at Ephesians Vision Ministries at Butler Market in Boyd Acres, 2 o'clock this afternoon, and that's for people in ministry, churches, individuals that want to help promote the movie to help promote it. We won't be in town on September 30th because we have to go to Myrtle Point and set up, but we do strongly encourage that you, if you're in Bend or whatever city they're in where Courageous is showing, we do ask that you support that movie. Tomorrow, Sarah Holzclaw will be on TJN Live from 7 to 7:30. She is one of the few IRS acceptance agents. Now, what exactly does that mean? That is a person who helps an individual that needs residency status, needs help being legally in this country. And so we'll talk to her about why that's needed so much and just how that works. And that's tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Congressman Greg Walden is in Central Oregon right now. Tomorrow he will be having a presentation in Prineville at Prineville City Hall, and he's going to talk to reporters about the Central Oregon Jobs and Water Security Act and what he is doing to help create jobs here in Central Oregon. And at noon tomorrow, he will speak to the Rotary Club of Greater Bend at the Riverhouse Convention Center. EVM Media is going to be at both of those events, and we will be bringing you both of those events, either live or tape delay. If we can't do it live, we're going to try to do it live, but if we can't, then we'll put it on our website just as soon as we get back to to our facility here. So, and then more to come. We have other announcements coming up, but that should keep you have enough to keep track of for now. Who we do want to talk to right now is Gavriel Smith. And Gavriel, I'm excited about hearing your story.
I'm as well.
And Gavriel was born in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
In communist Russia. Gavriel, what is your Russian name?
Dmitry Valerievich Nikinorov.
Dmitry Valerievich Nikinorov, and you were born in 1988 in St. Petersburg.
Yes.
So let's start at the beginning. What was it like to be born in the Soviet Union, in communist Russia? We have an image here in the United States that it was very depressed, very oppressive, very, very unhappy place to be.
I don't have very many memories being so young. I left the Soviet Union when I was 5, almost 6. But I have vague memories of just a very sorrowful state, constantly being worried, scared. There wasn't any time that I really remember being happy as a child. It was always a constant, survival basically, because there was a lot of social unrest. The wall had fallen in '89, and so the social aspect of Russia at that point was just struggling to figure out not only jobs but also what people were going to do to eat. There was bread lines. It was really a place of basically dog eat.
Dog eat dog.
Exactly. And so
survival of the fittest.
Exactly. And so there wasn't a lot of let's go to the movies, let's hang out, family bonding time. There wasn't really much chance for that.
So as you compare with what you knew about life in the Soviet Union and America now, obviously you much prefer
Absolutely.
The American way of life.
Absolutely.
Now, when you were a little kid, you didn't really know that there was any other way other than the life you had in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
So if we were to go to a person in the Soviet Union then and talk about freedom, would they even really know what we're talking about?
No, they would not. They would understand only of what the government had taught them to know. There was not a lot of freedom of speech. There was nothing like that. They were barely, even when the wall came down, they didn't understand what it was like with the wall being down. And so they were still in this, survival mode. It's like being kept in the dark and then thrown into the light. You're automatically hurting because it's like you've never been around the light.
Mm-hmm. There's a pastor friend of mine that he was in someplace in Africa, I believe, and there was a pet monkey. And this pet monkey had a chain wrapped around it. From when the time this little monkey was a prisoner, was an infant, they chained the monkey. Mm. And so the pastor came along and he took off the chain. And so the monkey didn't know any other way. And so the monkey went and grabbed the chain and held onto the chain. And what the pastor had to do is he had to take the chain away from the monkey and put it in a shed, because the only thing that monkey knew was the chain, and there was security in that. And so even when the chain was removed, the monkey went and grabbed onto the chain. Kind of the same.
Very, very true.
Okay. So let's talk about your story. Okay. Very interesting. The hand of God was on your life, and you were given money when you were a young child to go out and buy alcohol, and then you never went home again.
Yes.
So let's take it from the beginning.
Okay.
You were born in St. Petersburg. Tell us a little bit about the home situation that you were brought up in, and then what happened that day, and start from the beginning.
Okay. So it all began I remember living with my mom. I never remember my father. We lived in a very tall apartment building. During that time, everything was uniform. Communism, their belief is everybody gets the same, so that there is no complaining. Basically, that's their tool to control people. So I remember living in a very tall apartment building, and just being really ornery as a child. My mom was never really around. She was either drunk or out with somebody. So my sister, who was a year and 5 months older than me, she really took care of me, and also our babushkas. They were in the home, to take care of us and basically make sure that we got fed and clothed and whatever.
Now, what's a babushka?
It's a Russian grandmother.
Okay.
We still don't know if they were related to my mom or if it was just some ladies that she had in the home. But they were our security. They were
Right.
our basic parent growing up. And, I remember times of where we would be out of the house going to school, and not going to school to learn, but going to school to eat, because my mom didn't have food at the house, and we would go into the cafeteria, and there'd be the big cauldron or pot full of borscht. Borscht is a cabbage and beet stew that they make in Russia. It's very, very common. And I remember eating that. And also there was this little girl that would throw us Ziploc bags full of noodles from her window so that her mom would know that she was feeding us. I mean, these were very drastic times. I remember,
Wow.
it wasn't like, go down to McDonald's and get a hamburger or go to the store and, pay for something. It was very, like I said, dog eat dog. My sister would just take care of me. And
No Big Macs for $2.
no, none of
Okay.
that. And so my mom being constantly out, I remember times waking up in the apartment and it was, dark and she wasn't home, and having that feeling of what's going on.
Yeah.
As a 4-year-old child, you don't understand, why your mom's out doing what she's doing. You don't
Yeah.
even, that doesn't really run through your head. You're just worried about why she's not next to you at that moment. That was one of probably the scariest situations I was in Russia at that time.
Mm-hmm.
There was another time where our water heater broke and it flooded the apartment, and I remember my mom and sister yelling to get on the couch. And so then it was automatically, thank God that they were there to help, but also at the structure of the apartment was just so bad. The upkeep was bad. There was no maintenance man, you know what I mean? So it was just a really scary situation growing up,
Yeah.
There was a lot of yelling, a lot of abuse in the home. It wasn't, let's read a book together, any of that. There wasn't any bonding time.
Yeah.
And so it was just really, crazy growing up in that house.
Yeah. You said that. Go ahead.
My mom, I remember her, leaving a bottle of vodka on top of the table, and she was gone. And me and my sister taking that bottle and drinking from it. And I mean, she's 5 and I'm 4. I mean, we were drunk after the first sip. And I remember, me sitting under the table, passed out, and then, waking up and my sister's passed out, so I drag her into the room. And I mean, it's crazy because it's like people don't really understand that kind of situation, because in America, nothing like that would even be considered as anything normal. There was no authority. There wasn't any parenthood. There was completely no law in that house. And so when my mom gave us that money, it was normal. It wasn't anything like we asked, why is she doing this? Because there is no drinking age in Russia at that time. And so when, she's drunk and she needs vodka, she just gives us money, doesn't think twice about it. There's no consequence to her action at that point. And I remember that moment, clinging to my sister, walking down the stairs, because we hated the elevator, walking down the flights of stairs, and then into the cold.
So what had happened at this point was that your mom gave you some money to go get more vodka.
Yes.
And so she sent you out in the streets. You were 4 years old, and your sister was 3? 5. You were 4, your sister was 5. You were given money to go out in the streets and buy more vodka for her.
Yes.
And you never went home again.
No.
Okay, what happened then?
Basically, we were walking down the street, and we were found by some people that were walking as well. And, being so young, automatically, no parent, involved. They're like, what's going on here?
And this was 10 o'clock at night?
Yes.
Okay.
It was late in the evening, and we told them our names. We told them our mom's name. We told them our agenda, basically. And people are going to, wonder what's going on. And so they took us down to the police station. And so the police, did a background check to figure out if they could find our mom, which they couldn't. And that's basically a good description of the social unrest that Russia was going through at the time. I mean, this is early 1993, and my mom's not even able to be found. Whether it was a birth certificate involved or what why wasn't she able to be found a resident of St. Petersburg? That's still up in the air. But all we know is basically the police couldn't find a guardian for us, so they sent us to the hospital. They checked us out, make sure we didn't have diseases or whatever, and then we were on our way to an orphanage. Okay. And that's basically what happens to children that don't have a guardian.
But in their case, Gavriel believes, I wanted to call you Dmitry for a minute, but you answer by Gavriel.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Gavriel believes the hand of God was on his life because they were removed from the Russian situation, brought to America. So somebody might think, oh, that's a terrible thing to happen to that child. But God used this circumstance to bring him out of that and bring him into a much better situation.
Absolutely. See, when all this happened, it was totally like behind the scenes, because at that point I didn't know who Jesus was or who God was. All I knew was that I was doing what was given to me to do. Survival, and so when we were placed into this orphanage was for the sight impaired. It was for eye deficiency, basically. And so the reason I believe we were placed in there, because I had strabismus, which strabismus is lazy eye, basically. It's when your eye goes into your head and your eyes aren't simultaneous. Right. And so having that disease, I was given like really thick Coke bottle glasses, and they tried to teach us how to read, but there was no repair at that point. One thing I do remember is the fact that Russia at that time was reusing all of their medical equipment, all their scalpels. I mean, here we use it once, we throw it away. They're boiling it, they're reusing it because there's not a lot of it available. And so they weren't just able to take me to the eye doctor and say, well, this is what's going to happen to him and let's fix it and bada bing, bada boom. It was, we're going to just stick him in this orphanage and hopefully it gets better. Mm-hmm. Because in Russia, if you have a problem, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, you're kept away from society because there's a better chance that you will die off and they won't have to deal with you, and they'll save the ones that are perfect in their eyes for, citizenship and productive member of society.
So if you have some kind of defect, you're not a productive member of society, and you're kind of, well, let's hope they go away. In other words, you're just thrown away.
Exactly. And the hand of God in that situation was the fact that I see today that he used something that was deficient in me to be the sufficiency that I have today in him. Because I had no idea what America was at that point. I had no idea what freedom was like. I had no idea what it was like to feel secure, to feel loved, to feel like I was worth something. And so being placed in this orphanage, I remember like 30 kids in a sauna. Mm-hmm. And I remember apples. There's just little things that I remember about this orphanage. It was cold, Russia's always snowy. And I remember getting little squares of mirrors. And it was actually a very uniform, tall, rectangular building. It had 3 levels. The older kids were on top, the younger kids on bottom. There was about 300 kids in this orphanage, and we would all go out to play at different times. And I remember using the sun off the mirror to bounce it on the wall, and the kids would try to tag it. And I remember these little moments of time where I was giggling and laughing, and kids were throwing snowballs down my back. But it was just, that was probably the best time that I had in Russia, was in that orphanage. But yet I didn't know that out of those 300 kids, that me and my sister were going to be the ones selected to be brought to America to learn about Jesus, to learn about God, to have such a calling placed on our lives.
That's incredible. So how did they select you? Did somebody from America say, we want these two? Or
That's entirely the hand of God. Once again, God is screaming, I want you. I mean, it's like Uncle Sam saying, I want you, because my parents, my mom and dad in America, were not even going to get us. Mm-hmm. They were going to adopt 2 other siblings who were deaf. They were both deaf, and they were going to adopt them. And so when they got to the orphanage, the directors told them that they had already gotten adopted, and at that point, that's all part of the disruption of the country at that point, because there is no real lot, paperwork and hierarchy of economic structure or anything like that. And so when my parents show up and find out the kids are already adopted, it's because somebody first come first serve basically. Well, they automatically told them, well, we have these other two siblings that are ready for adoption, and my parents said yes. And that was, I believe, God's way of saying that nothing else can have the glory in this but me. And that was his way of showing that it was his will for us to go. And I remember that moment. We were on the slide, and it was a wooden slide in the playground, and we would dump water on it overnight. It would freeze, and we would get on our toboggans or sleds or whatever. We would slide down this thing, and it'd have a path, and it was great fun. And I remember this girl named Tatiana. She came and told us, "You have parents. You have parents that they've come to get you."
Wow.
And I remember, there's probably 50 kids outside playing, and I remember I was on top of the slide. My sister was on the bottom, and I looked at her, and at that moment, it was like we're picked, because we've seen many kids picked. I don't know if you've seen Stuart Little, but you have that idea of him driving away and waving. That was basically how it was for us. They actually came and visited us first. Our parents did, and my mom has a whole photo album of what it was like that first visit.
Wow!
But it was just ecstatic joy, because we had never known what it was like to be wanted, and so at that moment it was like God stepped in and said, "I want you."
And so it's like, so it wasn't a feeling of fear. It was like, we've been picked. Somebody wants us.
Yes.
And so you left the orphanage, and how long were you in the orphanage? 6 months?
6 months.
Okay. And now you're back. Now you're going to America.
Yes.
Okay.
And so while they're visiting us, they're basically giving us gifts. I remember those old Disney books with you turn the page and you push the button of the picture and it makes the sound. I had a Winnie the Pooh one, and my sister had a Cinderella one, and that was like the big thing. We showed all the kids in the orphanage because our parents had to leave us and then come back and get us. So it was like a visit, and then a month later they came and got us, because that was in December. They came back in January of 1994 and actually took us out. And I remember just being over just joyed.
Yeah.
I was very hyper, bouncing, literally. My mom has pictures of me hanging upside down and just bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
Because I was so excited. And from the orphanage, we went to, I believe, the mayor's office, who started all the paperwork. We sat there and talked to the person and said, yes, we wanted to go. And after that, we hopped on a train from St. Petersburg and rode the train to Moscow. And then from Moscow, flew to France, and then from France to LAX. And then we're in America. And that whole trip, I was just the most ornery kid you could think of. My mom was jet lag, and she was trying to sleep on the train. it's a Russian train, so there's smoke everywhere, and I'm flipping on the light, turning it off, and that was my first spanking.
Yeah.
And that I guess you could say we didn't get off on the right foot.
Yeah.
But I was just so excited. I didn't know what it was like to be on a train. I'd never been on a train, and so all these things were new, and that's exactly what God had prepared for me at that point. Is this is your family. And I had no idea what that was. So
you're in America now. You're in Los Angeles. So what was life like? You've been through the Teen Challenge program.
Yes.
So when you first came to America and you were growing up, not a lot of structure in your life, what was it like just being thrust into American society? Was there a problem adapting? What kind of kid were you after you had your first taste of freedom and Big Macs and all that good stuff?
Well, speaking of Big Macs, that was as soon as we got to LAX on the ride home up California, because I lived in Hanford, California, which is central. It's about 45 minutes south of Fresno. Okay. That was my first Happy Meal ever, and I remember the toy at the time was Sonic. I had to pull the string, and it flew around in the car. My mom was very, very tired, and she's like, "I can't believe this kid's doing this." She threw it out the window. But growing up, my mom and dad had already had 2 daughters of their own, biological, and so we were the third and fourth children to be in the home. I remember arriving at the house. We had never seen a bathroom. We had never seen a room to ourselves where there was 2 beds, and I remember my sister just jumping up and down on the bed and holding our teddy bears because we never had them, And growing up, it was very hustle and bustle. My dad is a police officer, and so he was working swings at that time. So he would get up, 2 in the afternoon, go to work, and come home 2 in the morning. So he was, a good part of my life, but my mom was more or less the leader in the home, you could say. I was homeschooled throughout, that whole period. So it was very hands-on, and we learned English very quickly because we spoke fluent Russian. Well, that doesn't do you very good in an American family.
No.
And so we were thrust into, homeschooling, hooked on phonics, the whole bit, and we finally learned English in a little bit over a year. And I've spoken ever since. And I actually forgot my Russian.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Okay. So, were you a good kid growing up? Were there problems? What happened?
I was all out for attention. I really wanted the attention of my mom and my dad, and so I would have, I never learned my lessons well, you could say. I did things that weren't correct. One of the things was I would hoard food because not knowing what a refrigerator was, I would, just take food in my room, and then I would be, in trouble for that. And I didn't technically understand why, but I didn't care to understand either because I was so, hyper, and I would just overlook the mistake, and I would not learn from the punishment. And so growing up, from 6 years old to, 13, I didn't care what my parents were telling me. It was just my way or the highway, and so going to church, I went through the motions, basically. My mom said we were going to heaven, we're going to heaven. There wasn't a tangible existence of God in my life. I even overlooked the fact that I was adopted and that I was plucked from death. Mm-hmm. That wasn't, I wasn't grateful for what had happened to me. And so, my mom and dad began adopting more children. They've actually adopted 7 total and had 2 of their own. So there's 9 siblings in the home. And so, as more kids started coming, the attention was getting less and less, especially when you're doing bad. They're not going to show you more attention. You're just going to be kept, by yourself. And so it was just worse and worse, and I just became very rebellious. And that was my number one issue all the way up until teenagehood, was just rebellion.
So did you get into crime? And what happened to bring you to a relationship with Jesus Christ?
That was the other hand of God in my life, is how He knew exactly what it would take for me to get on my knees. From the age of 13, I began using marijuana, and I wasn't in public school, but maybe a year and a half total. And my first taste of being a bad kid was really juvenile hall, and that's where I learned everything from cussing to different drugs and drinking, because those kids were in there because they had a record. I was just in there because I had told my mom that I'd kill her. It was terrorist threats, and it was a wake-up call. It was supposed to be a wake-up call. Well, it ended up being something that I took the other route. Basically, I dived into what the world offered, and I began to indulge myself in every pleasure that I could. And so from 13 years old to 18, I was, smoking weed behind my parents' back and drinking and basically doing everything I could to make sure that they didn't know, because of how I was feeling. I was feeling very inadequate, very insecure. I didn't know who I was, but I knew that the people that I was doing those things with supposedly accepted me, and they liked me for what I was. And so that's the group that I chose to hang around with. I totally departed from the family that God had placed in my life.
What could they have done to raise you that would have helped you choose a better route? I
can't really think of anything that would really change how it all turned out. The one thing that I would ask that would have been different was if my dad would have taken a bit more interest in me. Being the only boy, I forgot to mention that. I was the only boy for about 10, 12 years until my little brother came along. I was always either grounded or there wasn't any extracurricular activities.
Right.
There was just, authority. And that's all I saw. No fun. It was just authority. And that's probably the one thing that I would have done differently is, how to balance and really focused on why I was being punished.
Okay. Maybe if your father had taken more of a mentor and a friendship, and not that as fathers we're supposed to be friends all the time with our kids, but if we can have a positive role model and structuring instead of just when you do something bad to slap them on the hands. This is just a great example of why a movie like Courageous is important. because there is a strong message of what happens when a man becomes a good spiritual leader in the home and when he doesn't. And in Gavriel's situation, I'm not saying bad about his American dad, but looking back, and hindsight is 20/20, then Gavriel would have had a much easier transition if the dad had taken more of a hands-on mentoring relationship in his life. And that could be difficult to do, especially with work schedules and so on and so forth. But God still has the final say.
Amen.
So
Amen.
how did you come to have a relationship with Jesus? How did you come to know that, hey, this God thing is real and amazing and it changed my life? What happened?
Basically, from 18 years old, I took the prodigal son approach. I mean,
Right.
I totally moved out, threw my dad the key, and said, I'm done. And so I moved out on my own. Basically, no parental guidance, didn't have to answer to anybody, and I did what I wanted. Got my own job, and now I, stayed out as long as I wanted, and I really began to be influenced by a lot more because there wasn't anything holding me back. And so 18 to 21, I was absolutely just lawless. There was no authority, nothing. I mean, it got to the point where I was not only doing marijuana and alcohol, but I was doing the hardcore drugs. I mean, I was hanging around the very bad people that were breaking into houses, that were holding people at gunpoint, and I was involving myself in things that I was never even raised to be around. Mm-hmm. Especially my father being a police officer.
Yeah.
21 years old, September 22nd of 2009, I find myself homeless. I haven't talked to my parents for over 2 years, and they know that I'm not doing good. They don't know what I'm doing, but they know I'm not doing good. I never invite them over. They don't know what I'm doing, and so I burnt every bridge surrounding my used to be support. The people that loved me, the people that I was ungrateful to, have no longer, been a vital piece in my life, and so now I'm not even communicating with them. And so when I'm homeless, I basically ran out of resources. Not only did I get fired from my job at Burger King because of the drug use, I didn't see that as, why were you doing the drugs? I saw that as, well, I got to find another job to get more drugs. Well, being raised in the church, being raised, on phonics, being raised in a home like I was, I had book smarts. I didn't have street smarts. And so I didn't know how to hustle. I didn't know how to get more out of you than what I could give you. And that's everything you need on the streets. You need a mentality of, it's all about me and what I can get from you.
Right.
And I don't come easily to that. And I believe that's another piece of the hand of God in my life, is the fact that even through all that turmoil and even through all that lawlessness, that He still had a key piece. He said that I will bring you from this, that I have a work in you that I am completing. And so I remember I reached out to my mom and I said, Mom, I'm homeless. I have no food. I have nothing. And she tells me to go on the internet and look up this program called Teen Challenge. I had never heard of Teen Challenge. I had never thought that there was even a place like Teen Challenge, and I still didn't even know what it really was. I didn't know it was faith-based. I didn't know any of this. And I looked it up on the internet, and I automatically, when you go to the Teen Challenge page, there's a big picture of the United States and a bunch of little dots where all the centers across the states are. And automatically my first thought was, I want to get as far away from where I'm at as I can. So I began clicking on Vermont, Rhode Island, Maine. I'm trying to get as far away as I can.
Right.
These centers weren't, because it's East Coast time, I wasn't thinking, I'm just trying to get out of here. They weren't answering. So I ended up calling Central Oregon, Bend, and Kim Van Antwerp answered. And I remember she just said, what's your story? And I began for about a half hour just telling her, I've come to the end of my rope. I have nowhere to go. I have no money to my name. And it was basically a total God thing, because the one thing I remember her saying, and I don't remember anything else she said, get your butt up here. That's the words I heard. And I was like, okay. So I talked to my dad. He paid the $170 to get on the Amtrak. I rode the train up here, and I have not been back in California since the day I left, September 22nd, 2009.
So September 22nd, 2009 is when you came up to Teen Challenge and been involved in the Teen Challenge program in Redmond?
Bend.
Bend, okay. And so what's the experience like at Teen Challenge? Now, I've seen the testimonies and heard the testimonies, and they're amazing. If you want to support a ministry that has fruit, I would strongly suggest you support Teen Challenge.
Absolutely. Teen Challenge is a faith-based drug recovery program that not only helps people with life-controlling issues, but it's also a discipleship program that stays with them to help them and support them on their walk outside of the doors of Teen Challenge like I am today. Stepping into Teen Challenge, I knew that there was going to be a bed, there was going to be a shower, there was going to be food in my belly, and there was going to be peace. I had no idea that I would be touched by God the way that I was going to be. And so I remember coming to Bend, I was like, really still very rebellious. I still had all that luggage and baggage that I took from California of all the turmoil that I had put myself through, because that's the one thing that I realized after I got plucked from California was, wow, everything that happened was because I chose to do what I did.
Yeah.
Regardless of what God had placed in my life to move me away from that. But the hand of God once again showed me after I graduated Teen Challenge that yes, I have brought you from where you're at and continued that work so that today your testimony shines brighter and you cannot say that anything else in your life brought you to the place that you have been. Because if you would have had some different medication or a different way of lifestyle, or you just woke up one day, maybe you would have used that as an excuse to say that's what helped me. But now I say I have called you from something into something, and I want you to know that. And so Teen Challenge really showed me not only why the drugs were not supposed to be in my system, but what kind of person I was before the drugs began. And that is key, because not only is that who you're left with after you get off the drugs, because when you come to Teen Challenge, you're basically cold turkey. You can't smoke, you can't drink, you basically don't leave this. It's a residential program. And so when you're surrounded by nothing but Jesus, you're daily being faced with, who are you? Who were you before the drugs entered your system? Were you a good person? Because if you weren't, that is where we start. Like Terry always tells me, they don't deal with the leaves on the tree. They go to the root, to the main issue of what caused all this. And so when I began to see patterns in my lifestyle, that, the rebellion, that was one of the key things that they really helped me to deal with is, this is your rebellious attitude. When I tell you to not lay in your bed after 10 a.m. and you're laying in your bed because you want to, that is a spirit of rebellion. And in the Bible it says it is as the sin of witchcraft. And so when you're faced with these things that, it's just like your past happening again, but they show you a different way to look at it, and they show you the scripture, and it just shines the light on it, and then next thing you know, you find yourself on your knees bawling your eyes out. This is where God begins to heal. God begins, because in your broken state, you have really either yourself to lean on, or which hasn't worked before.
No.
Or,
how's that working for you?
Exactly.
Not too good.
And you have this alternative, which is what's working. It's a beautiful thing to come from nothing to having the light of God in you. And still, even to this day, I don't have much because I'm still, gaining, but God has just produced in me just a love and a passion for change, because that is what I'm constantly finding myself in, is change, because we're never fully finished until that day that we see Him. We are constantly changing in Him and growing in Him, and I'm just so excited to be able to tell people that Jesus is inside of me, and this is what He's done for me.
Praise God. Have you got a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Now, we do want to mention that normally at this part of the show, we've got the Operation Eagle's Wings. We had a scheduling conflict this morning, so we're going to continue talking with Gavriel Gavriel Smith, you live in Bend now, don't you?
Absolutely.
But tomorrow we will have another segment of Eagle Live, Operation Eagle's Wings, where we look at issues affecting and impacting veterans. And starting as soon as possible, hopefully as soon as tomorrow, the show will be 2 hours long. We are looking for broadcast locations or webcast locations throughout Central Oregon and throughout the rest of the state, Salem, Portland, Newport, Seaside, wherever we already have one in Ontario that we can go to and visit whenever we're in that area. We're also looking for sponsors for the shows. So, again, the program will go to 2 hours. First half hour is the Jesus Network, talking about what God is doing in the communities. Second half hour is Operation Eagle's Wings, where we look at specifically what's going on with veterans. What's their story? How can we help? Third half hour is EVM Media Community Pulse, where we just go into a community and just take a look at some of the issues, or one of the issues during that visit of when we're in the community. Fourth and final half hour is EVM Media Open Mic, and what that is, well, for 30 minutes, we'll talk to 6 businesses in that community and talk to them on what's going on in their business. What are they doing? Let them have some time to have a free commercial for about 5 minutes on our show. And we're pretty excited about growing it to 2 hours and taking it on the road. And so hopefully we can start that as soon as tomorrow. But as soon as we get guests booked, the show will grow to 2 hours. And again, we are looking for sponsors and broadcast locations here in Central Oregon. We're looking for broadcast locations specifically in Redmond and Bend. So, and we already are talking to a business, a restaurant in Bend, about locating there, and but we're looking for other locations as well. So, you can contact me at phone number 541-280-8833, 541-280-8833, or my email is dave@evmmedia.info. dave@evmmedia.info. We have actually more new websites to make it easier to find the show. The first one is www.tjn1.tv. Then there's www.eagle1.tv, and then evmmedia.tv, and more to come on that. So we're going to continue now to talk to Gavriel, and we'll have an Eagle portion of the show tomorrow. So Gavriel, Teen Challenge. What would you say to parents or teenagers that the teenagers are in rebellion? Somebody's got to do an intervention. What would you say to encourage them to use the Teen Challenge approach, or to contact Teen Challenge?
Well, to parents, I would say, don't stop praying. I am the victim of a mother's prayer, I must say, all the way. To a rebellious teenager today, even in my own family, as I see my younger siblings growing up, and I would say that it's all about perception. Mm-hmm. You are being influenced by so much. You are not only going to school and learning these new things of educational-wise, but you're also socially growing, and you're having to understand many different things, why these people are having cliques and gangs. And today's teenagers are just thrust into so many different influences in such a quick time that between the ages of 13 and, say, 18, when they're an adult, they are challenged to either know what they're raised to know, or they're going to do what they feel they want to do. And it's not like I sat there and said, well, my mom said not to do drugs, and my dad's a cop, and they wouldn't really like me hanging out with these people. It was an automatic, I'm having fun, and I've never had it like this before, and so I'm going to do it. And there's not a lot of thought process in between. And so when you begin to compromise, it all goes out the window. All the care, all the love, you compromise all that because all these other people are doing fun things that you're not supposed to be doing, but you don't look at that not supposed to be.
At that moment, it's fun.
Exactly. So to those teenagers, I would say, slow down. Mm-hmm. Think and be happy with your family and what they're doing for you, and bond with them, because ultimately that's who's going to have your back in the end. Friends only have your back if you have money, or if you continue to do those things. And especially learn from me that route will only take you down a path of destruction and just complete lawlessness, where you don't care about anything and nobody cares about you.
This next question, I think I already know the answer to this one, but do students or do teenagers have to come to the bottom before they reach help? I guess some people might realize it before they hit the bottom, but the vast majority probably have to hit bottom, don't they?
Yes, I've actually heard both sides. I've heard people say, well, it just left me one day. I know from my own experience, I had to come to the bottom where there was nowhere else to run. Like you're cornered, you're brought to a place where the only thing you can do is look up. Because if you continue to say, well, I'll just find another job, or I'll find a program that's not residential where I don't have to be so disciplined and so structured, I'll just try to find something that makes me feel a little better, you're not dealing with the root cause. And so that is the main issue, is when you have to be looking at the root cause, that is what really counts, because that's what's really going to make the change last. Because it's not only about getting off the drugs, but it's living a life that shines your sobriety, that reflects what God has done in your life. And even today, I share that with even my coworkers at Walmart. I work at Walmart here in Bend, and I am so excited to tell everyone that I know of. I mean, that's actually one of the reasons I got the job, because I told them, I used to be a drug addict. I used to be not this. And the only reason that I am this is because of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior.
Wow.
And I mean, the interviewer literally broke down crying.
Wow.
And it was awesome, because not only did God move in that moment and say, son, this is what I have for you.
Yeah.
And today I am able to shine that light. Even coming here this morning, I told all my coworkers, I'm going to get interviewed at the Jesus Network just to be able to shine and say that He's the one that's doing this today. If I had my life back, I'd be back in California doing that same stuff, because that is what I'm comfortable doing. But getting off the drugs and being able to sustain only in Him is what really keeps me going, because He is not done with me. Like I said, He called me out of something into something.
Wow. What's ahead for Gavriel Smith?
Oh, excuse me?
What's ahead in your life? What are your goals? What do you want to do with your life?
I am actually looking for ministry opportunities.
Okay.
I have no idea what God has planned for me, except that He is using me every day in not only love in action, but serving anywhere I can. I've actually, I wrote a poem recently called Offering All Services, because that is really what I feel God has called me to do. I automatically get so happy when I'm able to help somebody. And I take myself out of the picture and I say, this is all about you. And that is what God, I really feel, is calling me to do, and also to proclaim what He has done, because that is part of not forgetting where you came from. Because even in the Bible, when Moses told the children or the Israelites to repeat their story and tell them of their exit out of Egypt, because that is what keeps the presence of God aware in your life. Every morning when I wake up and I draw that sober breath, I say, you know what, Lord, thank you that I'm even able to stand in your presence and also be an example in other people's lives, that this can happen, that change can occur in your life. No matter if you're not doing drugs, or you need to get help in debt, or whatever it is, there is change possible through Jesus Christ. And that is what I feel God is doing today in my life. And I would love to go on a mission trip. I would love to speak anywhere. I jump at the opportunity to speak, because that is what makes me today.
Wow, amazing. If you have a question for Gavriel during the last part of the show here, you can call us at 541-280-8833, 541-280-8833. So, Gavriel, you're an intern. Are you still an intern with Teen Challenge?
No.
Okay, so you exited the program,
Yes.
you graduated.
Yes.
And you're working at Walmart, and you're just looking for ministry opportunities.
Yes.
I know you. I met you. Well, I at the banquet about a year ago.
It was in April.
It was in April. Okay, I saw you at the banquet at Teen Challenge when we did a video, and it's one of our first live broadcasts. But you were with a friend, Eddie Sianda.
Yes.
Are you working with Eddie in outreach?
Yes, he's actually spoken to me about getting my testimony printed, doing some tracks. He sees the call of God in my life. And anybody that sees that knows that if they're in support of that, they will see that come to fruition.
Right.
And I cling to people that, like my church, I go to Living Purpose Church, and that church has really shown me what it is to serve in a church and what it's like to be in the house of God and be a steward of that. Because we are the church, we are the body of Christ. And so to reach out and touch people's lives is what it's all about. And so Eddie spoke with me, and he actually, introduced me to you.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for God to perpetuate everything that I'm involved in today, because just as he was the hand of God in that Russian orphanage, and just as he was with the eye deficiency, and just as he was with the drugs and Teen Challenge, that pattern will continue because he's the same today, tomorrow, and always. Mm-hmm. That pattern will continue as long as I'm faithful in saying that he is who's the number one in my life. And that is what is moving me today.
Okay. Praise God. Amazing story. We'd like to have you involved in some of our outreaches that we do. And when we go into a community, we take a number of different things there. We take the show, we do the morning show, look at the community aspect, the veterans aspect, and then we also do a Christian outreach. In Ontario recently we did a concert in Lions Park. We're in the mode right now. We're raising money for a trip to New Zealand, ministry trip that we're tentatively planning to take in November. Steve Campbell of Prineville used to work for Breedlove Guitars, and we'll be making a $5,000 guitar, double neck, acoustic, electric. It's one of those guitars with two necks on it, and the top is acoustic and the bottom of it is electric, and it's worth about $5,000. We're selling raffle tickets for $10 each as one of the main ways of funding our trip to New Zealand. We need to raise about $6,000 for the trip, and we're still a few $1,000s short. So if you would like to donate to that, that would be great. You can go to our website, thejesusnetwork.info or TJN1.tv. That's TJN1.tv for locations and where to buy the raffle tickets. Sunday Guitars in Bend is one place. Lifesong Books in Prineville. Book and Bean in Prineville is another location. I'm recalling these from memory, so if I forget your location, forgive me, but you can find a list of them at the website. In Ontario, Greif's Music, Specialty Guitars, and Jolson Juice. And I know I'm forgetting some. Excuse me for that, but check our website at tjn1.tv for those locations. And so when we go into a community, we sometimes will do a crosswalk. We have a cross like Arthur Blessed with a wheel on it, and we roll it through the streets. First time we did it was here in Bend about a week ago. That was interesting. And we can do a concert. It just depends on the community and what's going on. So maybe we'll have to take you to one of our communities.
That'd be awesome.
And especially as one of the things that we want to do is reach out to the youth.
Mm-hmm.
So substance abuse in New Zealand is one of the things that the youth are having a challenge with over there is there's not a lot of jobs. And in many of the families, what happens is life is going out and getting pissed after work. That means getting drunk. That's the slang term they use in New Zealand. And so the kids work all day and then they party all night, and nobody's really shown them the way. So substance abuse can be a problem. Suicide is a problem in New Zealand for the youth. And so we plan on going there in the future, and would love to have you go with us, especially to speak to the youth and just share your testimony, because there's power in the testimony. When you can see what God has done with someone like Gavriel, God has taken from, a real bad situation, and see where he is today, you can see definitely the hand of God in his life. So, Teen Challenge. If people want to find out more about the program, how do they contact Terry? Terry Van Antwerp is the director of Teen Challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
Terry Van Antwerp and his wife, Kim Van Antwerp, can be contacted through the local branch here in Bend. We have I want to say 5 in Oregon. I don't know all the locations. But Terry can be reached at 541-480-0052. And that's a direct line. Central Oregon Teen Challenge also has a phone number, which is 541-678-5272. And they would love to hear from you if you have, life-controlling issues, or if you have a teenager. The center here in Bend is actually it's a male adult center, so you have to be over the age of 18. But the Pacific Northwest has adolescent centers, which is between the ages of 12 and 17. And then we have male centers. We also have women and children centers. So also you can look up Teen Challenge. It's www.teenchallengepnw.org, and that will bring you to the site that I went to. And basically you will find out all you need to know about the program, what it takes to get in, and basically all the numbers that you need to know.
Okay. Tomorrow at this time, what you'll be watching at this time is Eagle Live, which is where we take a look at veterans issues. And as soon as we can ramp the show up to the full 2 hours, we will. Again, first half hour, which will be 7 a.m. to 7:30 Pacific time, is TJN Live, looking at Christian issues and what God is doing in the community. From 7:30 to 8, it's the Eagle Live, and we look at veterans issues, Pacific time. From 8 to 8:30, it is EVM Media Community Pulse, where we go into a community and look at a specific issue in that community. And then the last half hour, from 8:30 to 9 Pacific time, is EVM Media Open Mic, and that's where we're going to be inviting 6 businesses every day to come in and talk about their business, what they're doing, maybe what some of the challenges are, maybe if they have maybe if they have a message for the legislature or the government on how they can improve the situation to make it easier to stay in business. Maybe we can talk about that. And maybe they just want to tell you what special they're having that day. That's okay. It's EVM Media Open Mic. Hope to start it as soon as tomorrow, and it will be from 8:30 to 9 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the website that you're watching this. After the conclusion of the show, you can watch the replay. We try to have it up in about a half an hour. Sometimes if we're running from location to location because of setup and teardown, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get it up on the site. And you can also find it on YouTube, and just do a YouTube search for either EVM Media or the Jesus Network or Operation Eagle's Wings, depending on which show you're looking for. So, Gavriel, God bless you, my friend.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to visiting with you in the future and telling youth and parents your story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless. And that's going to do it for today's show. Check us out later on our websites. This one would be on TJN1.tv. You be blessed and have a great day.